He was like, no, Pookie, you keep your black snake out of there. Oh, so Filipino women are the most loyal women in the world.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now.
Here's the teeth. As y'all know, if you watch any of my videos, you know from around 2015 to 2017, I was working on a military installation contract and then doing my thing. So, anyways, oh man, y'all want to talk about Asian women loyal, African women loyal. I'm an African advocate. I love Africa. But I'm not gonna sit here and say anybody's loyal. I'm just gonna be like, man, you could find you a good one or you could find you some shit. But I'm here to dispel all these rumors. Alright, so in Yokosuka, Japan, there was a place called the Honcho. Everybody would go to the Honcho. When the ships were in, like when the carriers were in, that's when the Honcho was the littest. That's when all of Japan was the littest because that's when the most foreigners was around, so that's when the most girls came out. But nonetheless, when things got dry, the carriers was out to sea and it was just the little boys in, or we would go to this place called Tony's. Tony's was in the Honcho, but it wasn't one of the littest spots. I can't remember what the name of the other lit spots was at the moment, but I'll hit up one of my boys and ask him. But Tony's was an older spot, and it it was a situational spot. But let me continue. All right, so anyways, Tony's was a spot that you would go to meet married women. And typically they would be older women, and typically majority of these women in there were Filipinas. Okay? If you've been to Yakutsky, if you've been to the Hanji, you know what I'm talking about. Most people so but Tony's was I mentioned this in the other video. Tony's was a invite only spot. So unless Tony knew you or seen you in there before, you weren't gonna get in. So you had to be brought by somebody who was brought by somebody who was brought by somebody for the simple fact that it was to go in there and meet up with married women. So the first time I ended up being in there, one of my bosses was in there, and he was like such and such. He was like, Pookie, what are you doing here? He was also a Filipino man. He was like, Pookie, what are you doing in here, man? And I'm like, I don't know, such and such bought me. And he was like, yeah, man, I don't want you hanging around in here, man. This place is no good. You'll get in trouble in here. And I was like, okay, but I mean, he was in there, so I'm like, what is it? And I don't know, certain people, especially when they start getting westernized, I know certain people don't want black men dealing with their women. They don't mind if a white dude do it, but if a black man start dealing with their women, it kind of become a little like a bit much for them. Cause he did. I'll tell you a little bit later in the story. So, anyways, I'm like, all right, cool, but I mean, I ain't had nobody else to hang out with, so I'm hanging out with such and such. And he was like, all right, just be careful, man. I can't tell you what to do. You're a grown man, but just be careful. I don't want you to get in trouble. So, anyways, I never really understood it because, like, man, none of it. There was never really a plethora of bad chicks in there. It was literally just a spot to go in there and drink, chill. You would definitely the women gonna come up to you in there. You're gonna be able to have a nice little conversation. Blah 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 blah. Anyways, so this specific incident, right? Um, Once I kind of been in there a couple times on those slow nights, I kind of realized what was going on. I was like, man, there's only older women in here, a bunch of older guys, older contractors, older military guys, and it was just a pretty chill spot. But on certain nights, they would have like salsa nights, and then a lot of people would be in there. And then certain nights, it'll be dry. So what ends up happening is I'm in there and I'm going in there with this guy, and he's telling me, he was like, yeah, man, this is the spot you go if you don't get nothing else. They're gonna be in here for sure. He was like, but there's only one catch. And I said, what's that? Because you gotta be careful because there's lady boys in Japan, and sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. So I'm like, and what's that? And he was like, they married. He was like, every woman in here is married. Her husband is out to sea right now, and it's a don't ask, don't tell bar pretty much. And I'm like, in my head, when I first started working, in my head growing up, I always was like, man, I would never mess with a married woman because I wouldn't want nobody to mess with mine. So when this ends up happening, I'm like, at this point, I think I had already done messed with a couple married women, so I hadn't got accustomed to it because that's just what was happening. Those military chicks, bro, they gonna go. That's why I was like, man, you should never. They are gonna go. So we in there one time, and after he tells me this, man, I'm like I said, pretty much in Japan, I was that dude. I constantly stayed getting approached. I constantly stayed with something nice. So as we in there, it didn't take too long for an older Filipino chick to come up to me, and come sit next to me at the bar because that's where I was sitting. They had like a booth. They had booths on the left side, and they had the bar on the right side. They had little TVs. It was essentially a sports bar. So I would go sit up at the bar, and I would, just order my little drinks and watch the TV or whatever. And so she comes and sits down next to me, and she was like, Filipinos they do a lot of noise making. They like they point with their lips like this, like and if they telling you to look over there, they be like, they make a lot of noises and stuff like that. So when she's sitting next to me, she said, ah. The first words out of her damn mouth was,
Really, nigga?
I hate my fucking husband. I said, like, I was appalled. I didn't even know what to say. I didn't even know what to say, dog. She says, I hate my fucking husband. And I said, oh, word. And she was like, yeah, he's a master chief. And I'm like, that's exactly what I need to get in trouble with one of these high up ass dudes. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because, I mean, I had dealt with a military officer, a woman, because she wasn't supposed to be dealing with nobody below her, but I had, hit a military officer and stuff like that. So it was kind of like, I knew how these higher ups get around. And I know as a man, I know her husband probably out doing his thing, but that wasn't none of my business. It's just the crazy part. The first thing she said to me was that shit. And then she told me what ship he was on. She just started a whole conversation. Didn't even know me, just started a whole conversation with me. And I'm not really even responding. I'm kind of just like, man, that's crazy. Wow. Really? How'd that happen? You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't really trying to hold conversation because I was a bit nervous. Never done anything like this, and all you hear about is don't do this and don't do that, da 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 da. But yeah, yet there's a club specifically for it. So she was telling me he was out to sea, he was gonna be out this long, and he was mean, and he was this, and I'm like, oh, okay, okay. So I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And literally, this whole bar is full of Filipino wives that are in there for the same thing. And she said, after the end of all this talking and all this telling me about how trippy her husband was and this, that, and the third, man, she said, okay, so where you live? I said, shit, I stay right over here on such and such and such and such. Okay, she said, well, I live here. I'll call us taxi because that's the mode of transportation. Most people got cars and stuff, but it's more convenient to take a taxi, man. Because if you live far, you got to go through all these tolls and stuff. And like she didn't even give me the option of agreeing or saying no or anything, bro. And I had been drinking, and I already knew. Like, bro, let's be real. If I go into a bar that's meant for hooking up with guys' wives, I intend on hooking up with guys' wives. I'm not perfect, bro. So I said, okay. So she takes me, and we get a taxi. We go back to her crib. We do our thing, and then in my mind, most of the time when you mess with a chick out there, they on you. Like it was hard. Like I had to pretend to go to work so I can get chicks to leave the crib. Because once a Japanese girl come on, she don't want to leave. She want to stay there. So I had to admit, I had to pretend to go to work sometimes just to get a chick up out my crib. And then they be trying to stay while you gone. Now you ain't really gotta worry about them stealing out your crib as far as like TVs and stuff, but man, there has been situations where girls have stole change from my homeboys or dollar bills that we would leave laying around, even though we pay in yen. But everybody keeps some spare cash. We in and out the country and stuff like that. So yeah, they'll swipe your change. Your phone may come up missing or something like that. But anyways, so yeah, we go back, we do our thing, and then I taxi myself back home because I wasn't driving in Japan. I was taxiing everywhere. I even had a skateboard at one point. It's like I would just be riding a skateboard around. Yeah, I know, crazy. I grew up in that Wayne era. But anyway, so I get back, so I get back, go to sleep, same thing, same thing every weekend. So I go back in there and I see the same chick in there. And I'm like, God damn, your husband still ain't back. But this time she don't say anything to me. She sees me and she just keeps it pushing. And I'm like, oh, okay. I kind of felt off. I was like, damn, was our experience bad or what's going on? But she don't say nothing. She keeps it pushing and she walks right past me. And then I'm like, okay, cool. So I guess I gotta find something else. Cause like, man, like I said, I like to have something smooth. I don't want to have to keep looking for something all the time. So if I get a nice little chick, I'm cool with sticking with her. Man, tell me why. I go sit down at the not the bar, but the booth this time. I'm sitting down at the booth, and I'm sitting down with the same dude who introduced me to the place. And when I'm telling you, I typically sit with my back towards the door, but I didn't want to be sitting directly. He sat down before me, so I didn't want to be sitting directly next to this nigga. Like we talking, looking each other in the face, like side by side. So what ends up happening is this nigga eyes get big as hell. I'm like what? He was like, And he just starts laughing. And I'm like, man, what? He was like, you know that little Filipino chick you hit? Her husband in here. I, I said, what? And I didn't make it obvious. I didn't want to turn around and look. So I just played it cool. I got my drink. I'm babysitting my drink. I'm like, and then I look out the corner of my eyes, and then she's all over the dude, like as if she ain't making no eye contact with me. I'm talking about she 1,000 yards stared straight dead ahead. She is not making no eye contact with me. And then Filipinos, they don't use when they say F words, they typically put a P in the front of it. So he was like, "Where's the fuck is he?" And then she was like, "Baby, I don't know what you're talking about." I know that my accent sounds a little Spanish, but I'm trying to. It's kind of hard. But anyway, so she was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." This is so I got into two situations where I was dealing with somebody's wife and almost got my ass checked. But the first one I did not know about. This one I was just kind of like, "Fuck it," you know what I mean? Which I know not one of the best idea, but shit happens. Anyways, I say whatever, whatever, and the dude was looking for him, and nobody says anything. Like I said, this bar is what this bar is for, man. So nobody said that's why they only let certain people in there, so that way nobody says anything. And my boy was like, man, he whispered to me, it's like if anything pop off, I got your back. I'm like, man, Papa, man, we can't fight this fucking man, but we going down if that shit happen. Nigga, we both getting kicked up out this mud, bro. We going back to the States on the first flight. And he was like, man, that's what I'm thinking in my head. But anyways, so the dude walking around looking around at people and stuff, and then he walks to because we sitting on the far end. We sitting like towards the wall. So his back is against the wall, my back is facing the door, but I'm facing him. So the dude comes down, he's looking at everybody. I guess he's trying to see if he can find somebody that's gonna look scared or something. So I mean he come, he looks, and I look right back at him and I'm like, you know what I'm saying? And then he just turns around and he walks out and she goes out with him. And I said, man, what the fuck was that? He was like, man, they just got back. And I guess he found out somebody was at the crib. But you got to remember, I wasn't the only one over there. Like one time I went to a chick crib. I went to a chick crib to smash. She had fresh piss on the toilet. Females ain't standing up to pee. You see what I'm saying? I'm talking about fresh piss. When piss sit out for a long time, it hardens up. It like turns into that like some shit that you got to scrape off. It was still wet piss. So I'm something she had a man over there literally right before I came over. So that's how they getting down. So I'm like, oh man, I don't. I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? So I get back to work the next day, and then my boss comes in. He was like, oh boy, told me what happened yesterday, and I'm like, why the what this dude go back and say something? And he was like, I told you to stay. He was like, I told you to stay the fuck out of there, didn't I? I told you you're gonna get in trouble. And he was like, you know what? He was like, see, I tell you, now if something happens, it is all on you because I warn you. And he was like, I was like, but you don't. I said, and the crazy part was my boss, my coworker, which I ended up advancing before he did, so he ended up being my subordinate. He used to go to the same spot with him. He went with the white boy. He went with, man. I'm gonna say his name was Dennis. The white boy's name was Dennis. And my boss used to go to the same bar with him. My boss was hitting other people's wives, but he told me to stay out of there. And see, I told you. See, he was like, I told you. But in his defense, it was kind of like he was looking out for me because he knew, I'm black, bro. I wasn't gonna get the same treatment if I got hemmed up as Dennis was. And he was like, yeah, I fucking know. And he was like, I was like, damn, chief. I was like, why I can't go with you? Because it was two bars like that. It was Tony's, and it was a bar called the Mermaid Bar or something like that. And they would never take me to the Mermaid Bar. And he was like, no, you will. So there was two bars. There was Tony's and there was the Mermaid Bar. The Mermaid Bar was also another bar that did the same thing, but this one was a little bit further out. And they would go there together, but they would never invite me. And I was like, man, I want to come to the Mermaid Bar too. Y'all, I've seen you at this place and such, and y'all go there together. He was like, no. He was like, no, Pookie, you keep your black snake out of there. I swear to God, I know a lot of times y'all hear these stories and y'all just don't believe it, but I swear to everything I love, this is actual factual. Every part of this is the truth. This man said, "No, man, no." He was like, "No, motherfucker, I want you to keep your black snake out of there. As soon as you get out, I won't. It will never feel the same." I said, "What are you talking about, man? What the hell are you talking about?" Which is, in my defense, I will feel like it's kind of true because, man, I'm talking about shoot. When I was in the Philippines, they act like I was killing them. Yeah, like they was man when I get in that thing, they had like they was being destroyed, bro. So I don't know, size comparisons and stuff like that. But when he said that, I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you're not gonna come there and ruin all the bitches, and then the stuff like that. But yeah, man, nothing ended up coming from it. But I just thought it was an interesting story to tell y'all because, bro, like I mean, the dude was looking. She obviously something got left over there. He might have saw somebody, but yeah, bro, like. I'm not gonna sit here and say any demographic or religion or race or ethnicity of woman is loyal than the other, bro. Cause I seen it, bro. I've been in situations, bro. It's nothing I seen quicker than a military chick who was married pull that ring off. We would call it the magic trick, the disappearing act. She would have a ring on this finger, slide her hand in her pocket, pull it out, no ring. That's how quick. I'm talking about. Man, they was getting military chicks getting hit in spaces on the ship. They getting bust down in parking lots. They getting people was messing around in dumpsters and they was doing it anywhere they could because that's just what it was, dog. If your man, if the dude, if you are lacking something, she gonna get a man who got it, bro. I'm telling you, bro. If you gone too much, she gonna get a man that's around. It's just how they are, bro. I'm telling you, bro. I seen so many chicks get piped for nothing. I piped so many chicks for nothing, dog. Simple, man, just simple being in shape and looking good. Ain't had to spend no money. Whole time her dude got in a luxurious house. They building houses in the Philippines. They building houses in the Dominican Republic. They building houses in Puerto Rico. They doing all this stuff for these women, and these women ain't appreciating none of that shit. That's why I say, when my karma come around, or if it has, and if it do, I can't be mad because I was doing all the same stuff. So if y'all like that video, I'm gonna give y'all 10 seconds to go ahead and hit that like button. Starting now. All right, man. So always remember, it get cold in these streets. Bundle up.